Data distributions. Our objective is to describe the central tendency of a data set as well as create box and whisker plots. Who uses this? Sports analysis examine data distributions. But before we deal with our sports, let's look at some vocabulary. The mean is the average. The median is the middle value when the values are in numerical order. So we're going to put all your numbers in numerical order from smallest to largest, and then the middle value is the median. The mode is the value that occurs most often. You can have more than one mode, and you can have no mode. The range is the difference between the least and greatest values. And an outlier is a value that is very different from the other values. So this will help us with our measures of central tendency. But we also have the box and whisker plot. Quartiles divide the data into 4 parts. Think quarters. And then you have the interquartile range, or IQR, the difference between the upper and lower quartiles. The interquartile range is the middle 50% of the data. A box and whisker plot uses the interquartile range in quartiles, so it can be used to show how the values in a dataset are distributed. Let's start with our central tendency. So we're going to find mean, median, mode, and range of sets of data. So we have 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, and 8. To find the mean, we're going to simply add all these numbers up and then divide by how many we have. So we have 3 plus 4 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 8. And there are 6 numbers, so we would divide this by 6. And when we do so, we end up with 30 on the top, and 30 divided by 6 is 5. So our mean is 5. Now let's look at the median. The median is the middle number. Notice how the numbers are already in numerical order, so we don't need to change anything. However, there are 2 middle numbers. We have 4 and 5 as our middle number. So you want the median is going to be the middle of those 2. So the middle of those 2 is 4.5, or 4.5. Your mode is the number that appears most often. So if we look at this data, the number 4 appears twice, and nothing else appears more than that. So therefore, the mode is the number 4. Your range is the difference between your least and greatest values. So your greatest value is 8, and your smallest value is 3. So 8 minus 3 is 5. Take a moment and pause the video and try this next one on your own. Keep in mind, the numbers are not in numerical order. When you return to the video, the answer for the mean, median, mode, and range will be found at the right. And there you have it. Now let's look at choosing a measure of central tendency. Niles scored 70, 74, 72, 71, 73, and 96 on 6 geography tests. Use the mean, median, and mode of his scores to answer each question. So the mean was 76, the median was 72.5, and there was no mode. Which value gives Niles' test average? Remember, average is like the mean. So in this case, that would be 76. However, which value best describes Niles' scores? And then explain. Let's think about it for a minute. Where do most of his scores sit? And then what is his average state and what is his median state? Okay, So the median score is the best description of Niles' 6 scores. Most of his scores were near 72. The mean is higher than most of Niles' scores because he scored 96 on one test. Since there's no mode, it's not a good description of the data at all. So the mode doesn't help us, but the mean also doesn't help us. So all we have is the median because that fits most of Niles' test score data. So now that we've looked at the measures of central tendency, let's start looking at the stuff we need for a box and whisker plot. Notice how all the numbers are written in numerical order from least to greatest. And we have the range, which is 9 minus 1 is 8. So that's your smallest value and your largest value. Now, you all know how to find the median. That's your middle value. So you count from the left and the right and you find your middle. That's also known as your quartile 2. When you're trying to find the first quartile and the third quartile, you're going to take the other data, so the data to the left and to the right, and then find the median of that. So we're going to look at just what's in this blue circle because it's all the data to the left of the median. So all the data to the left of the median is a 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, and 4. So we want to find the median of this data. So the median here would be 3. So the first quartile is 3. To find the third quartile, we're going to find the median of all the stuff after the middle number. So all the stuff to the right. So we have our numbers here, and the median of all these is 7. So your third quartile is 7. And those are the 3 numbers you would play with, your 3, your 5, and your 7. So when you go to make a box and whisker plot, you will need a number line. So you have a number line, and what you're going to do is you're going to plot your median, your first quartile, and your third quartile. So your first quartile is 3. Your median was 5. Your third quartile was 7. And you're going to make a box. So that's your inner quartile range. Your inner quartile range is that middle 50%. And then you have your 9 and your 1, your largest and smallest values. So your box is made up of the inner quartile range, and your whiskers go from your box to your smallest and largest values. And your inner quartile range, since it's a range, you would subtract. So in this case, the inner quartile range is 7 minus 3, which is this 4. So now let's look at a sports application. The number of runs scored by a softball team in 19 games are given. Use the data to make a box and whisker plot. So step 1, we need to put these numbers in numerical order. So we're going to put them in numerical order as follows. Now that all of the numbers are in numerical order, we can find our median. So take a moment and pause the video and find your median of the data listed below. So now you have your median, or your quartile 2. So now we want to find our quartile 1 and 3. So we're going to do the same thing with all of the data to the left and all of the data to the right of our median. So we're going to find the median of the data here and the median of the data here. So take a moment, pause the video, and find quartile 1 and quartile 3. When you return, you'll have both. Now that you have your quartile 1, 2, and 3, and your minimum and maximum value, we can now plot what we need on our number line. So the first quartile was 4, so we're going to put a line over the 4. The second quartile was 8, so we're going to put a line over the 8. And the third quartile was 10. So we're going to make our box. Now, we're going to find our maximum and minimum value, which is 2 for our minimum and 14 for our maximum, or greatest value. So we now have a box and whisker plot. So now we can read what's going on. So, based on this graph, half of the scores are between 4 and 10. So half of the game's scores are between 4 and 10. 1/4 of the scores are between 2 and 4, and the greatest score earned by this team was 14. So you can see where there are clumps, and you can look at the middle 50% of the data, or you can look at the data in terms of quarters. Well, that ends our video lesson on data distributions.